In November of 2010, Retro Studios delivered unto us Donkey Kong fans one of the greatest gifts they ever could. A revival of one of the best damn platformers that ever graced the SNES. Donkey Kong Country Returns was an insane announcement because up to this point, my guy DK wasn't doing too much. He was either playing around with some bongos or doing puzzles? I don't know. Either way, it had been over a decade since we had a legitimate Donkey Kong platformer on a mainline Nintendo console. So in steps Retro Studios, which at the time had only just done the Metroid Prime series of games, which, don't get me wrong, I don't say only did Metroid Prime lightly. Those are some quality fucking games. But going from a first-person shooter to a 2D platformer, that's a pretty tall order. But the developers at Retro were up to the task. A lot of them had played Donkey Kong Country and loved the games, and Michael Kelball, the then and still current president of Retro Studios, had actually worked with Rare on the original Donkey Kong Country games. So they already had a pretty good step in the right direction before they even really started with them. And goddamn did they do a lot right. The game felt great, the controls felt good, the platforming is near flawless. It's easily the greatest platforming game on the Wii. It had the challenge to it, which Donkey Kong games usually are a little bit more on the tougher side in terms of platforming. They're always a little harder than Mario. They got more challenge to them. They added a new dynamic with Diddy Kong and Donkey Kong, where Diddy is sporting his jetpack from Donkey Kong 64, and he chills on Donkey Kong's back, and he can let you have like an extra jump, a little float, being a cute little monkey. It's adorable. Very reminiscent of the original Donkey Kong Country, Cranky Kong returned. This time he runs a little shop where you can buy upgrades that can pretty much help make the game a little bit easier for you. Of course, you can't have Donkey Kong Country without a phenomenal soundtrack, and they did exactly that. They brought back a lot of the older songs from the original game, and they were pretty good remixes. They weren't the greatest, but they weren't terrible. There were also some original tracks in Returns, but they were a little weak. But overall, that was forgivable, because it was great to just hear some of these bangers from the original DKC come back. But Retro definitely put their own stamp on this game. They had their own flair. And I really respect the fact that they were able to keep the games feeling like the older country titles, and yet still add new things to it to make it feel more like their own. Being able to not only traverse the foreground of stages, but also in some, the background as well, was a really awesome design choice, and it really helped to sort of kind of build up the grandeur of these stages. It just made the platforming that much more challenging, which was really awesome. And of course, while Retro obviously did stick to the Rare designs for characters like Cranky, Donkey Kong, and Diddy, they definitely took their own liberties with pretty much everything else. DK Isle doesn't have the big Donkey Kong head mountain anymore like they used to have in the Rare games, which was disappointing, but again, this was Retro's game, and they definitely wanted to leave their mark on it. Also, obviously, when it comes to the designs for a lot of the wildlife, the animals, and the world itself, you can definitely see a difference between Retro's designs and the old Rare designs. But that's totally fine and to be expected. And honestly, like I said, Retro had a phenomenal art direction with this game. The silhouette stages are incredible. They're some of the most gorgeous looking stages I've seen in a platforming game. And again, they added a new dynamic with the challenge of platforming on this monotone colored stage where it's kind of hard to see certain enemies and stuff like that, but they did it beautifully. Of course, as good as Returns is, it's not the perfect Donkey Kong game. It certainly has its flaws. And like I said, this was Retro's game, so they wanted to leave their mark on it, and that's for better or for worse. And Returns was missing one thing. One real big thing. But you know what? Why don't I have my guy, Kensuke Tanabe, explain exactly what's missing from Donkey Kong Country Returns.
So this is something that we actually talked about fairly early on with Miyamoto-san. And we were really, we're getting together and we're like, well, what are we going to do about King K. Rool? Is he coming back? And we thought about it and we said, well, does he really need to? Why don't we just come up with something completely new? And this time, make sure there are no crocodiles in there.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Yeah, isn't that nice? They replaced Donkey Kong's arch nemesis with a bunch of fucking geekies. Then you get to do your final boss battle with fucking Andross. That was the one thing that, in my opinion, really held Returns back from being the best possible return for Donkey Kong. But you know what? A lot of us fans figured this was the first game in what we expected to be a trilogy. Metroid Prime got a trilogy, so we figured maybe Retro Studios is the kind of studio that likes to deal in threes. The classic triple threat. And that feeling would certainly be vindicated when a few short years later, in 2014, we would get Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Conquest is often considered the greatest Donkey Kong Country game out of the entire series, and usually the greatest platforming game on the SNES, debatably. And Retro mirrored Rare almost perfectly, because Tropical Freeze is in every way, shape, and form their Diddy's Conquest. This game is an absolute masterpiece. Retro did almost everything right. Everything that was good about the first game, they improved upon it. The platforming, the characters, they brought back Dixie Kong, they brought back Funky Kong, they made Cranky playable for the first time ever in the series. They expanded on the partner dynamic by having a super bar that when it fills up, you can do an ultimate move that will turn all the enemies on the screen into different collectibles. Dixie, Cranky, and Diddy all have their own extra jump mechanics, which completely changes the platforming in the game depending on which Kong you have with you. They added more islands to the game, so the game was longer, there was more levels to play. One of the flaws with Returns was the lack of the underwater stages, which was rectified in Tropical Freeze as they brought back underwater stages. And you know what the return of underwater stages means. Aquatic ambience is back, baby, and it was better than ever, because they actually got David Wise, the man, the myth, the legend, who wrote some of the best songs in the original Donkey Kong Country games, at least the first two. Special shout out to Evelyn Fisher, who did the entire Donkey Kong Country 3 soundtrack. I feel like she doesn't get enough credit. But anyway, Mr. Weiss came back to do the soundtrack for Tropical Freeze, and it is by far his best work. Easily rivals Diddy's Conquest, for sure. Like I said, Retro did almost everything right. But again, there is one thing that they missed. Yeah, K. Rool got the snub again for a second time. This situation is an interesting one though, because on the whole, the Snowmads are far better than the Tikis. Like, way better. Better designed, they're more fun, I like the Viking theme. They definitely feel more akin to the Kremlings. But, the thing that kind of makes K. Rool's snub so egregious in Tropical Freeze is the fact that Lord Frederick, in all intents and purposes, is literally just King K. Rool. He's a big fat walrus. His final boss fight is literally just like a K. Rool's greatest hits. And on top of that one, when the game was revealed and they first started to market it, they kind of kept showing Frederick as like this shadowed out figure, so all anybody could see was this big fat round guy in a Viking helmet. And a lot of people actually did think that it could have been K. Rool, and they were purposely shadowing him out to surprise everybody. But of course, it's just a big fat walrus. So some fans felt a little ripped off. Aside from the total lack of King K. Rool, the other thing that was weak about Tropical Freeze was the total lack of the animal buddies. In the first game we had Rambi and Squawks. Squawks really didn't do much besides get you some coins, and Rambi was there, obviously, but the levels with Rambi were pretty few and far between. Tropical Freeze was more of the same, with Rambi only being in a few levels and Squawks being there just to collect coins, but even worse than that was there was no expansion on the animal buddies. People expected maybe at least one more to show up, probably Unguard, especially because water stages were back, but nothing. And that, within itself, is a real shame, because the animal buddies were a big part of the original games, and there's such an expansive amount of them, but Retro just really didn't do much with them at all. But honestly, those are just nitpicks on a game that, again, is just absolutely phenomenal. But despite how great Tropical Freeze is, the game suffered. For one, the game was delayed. It was supposed to come out in November of 2013, but ended up getting pushed back to February of 2014, which obviously didn't help it that much. And of course, a big factor was that it was on the Wii U, which, I mean, I don't really have to go into detail about that one. So the sales on it weren't so great. Of course, Tropical Freeze was so nice, they released it twice, and they put it on the Switch. This time, with Funky Mode. And for the first time ever in the series, you could actually play as Funky Kong, and it served as sort of like a more casual mode. It was an easy mode, if you will. And the Switch release definitely helped push the game more, but it still hasn't quite sold to what Returns sold to. Which is a shame, because in my opinion, Tropical Freeze is the superior game between the two. But Diddy's Conquest is also often considered the better between that and the original, and yet the original Donkey Kong Country sold more than double of what Diddy's Conquest did. So it is what it is. But after Tropical Freeze, many of us fans were expecting there to be a third and final game. Retro Studios would close out their work on Donkey Kong Country by doing one more and giving us a trilogy, again, just like they did with Metroid Prime. But that hasn't happened, and the way things are looking, it looks like it may never happen. At the time of recording this video, we've gone almost nearly a decade without getting a new Donkey Kong game since Tropical Freeze, the last game being the port of Tropical Freeze on the Switch. And currently, there are a lot of rumors floating around about a new Donkey Kong game in development. So we know that we are getting one, and I mean, honestly, there isn't really a doubt in my mind that we will get a new Donkey Kong game. Nintendo definitely seems to be getting ready to push the brand more. I mean, they're gonna make a damn amusement park attraction for them, so we know something is coming. But a lot of the rumors are saying that Nintendo has now brought Donkey Kong in-house, and they're going to be making the games themselves rather than having another studio work on. And honestly, regardless of how the new Donkey Kong game turns out from Nintendo whenever we get it, I just can't help but feel like Retro still deserves to get that third game. Both of the Returns titles were just so quality. Retro proved how good they were at making a 2D platform. And Tropical Freeze showed that Retro was just getting better. They were improving on everything. And I can't help but feel that they were trending in the direction of, if they had gotten that third game, they probably would have given the fans everything that we really wanted. We probably would have gotten more Animal Buddies, and I honestly could have seen K. Rool and the Kremlings coming back. The years after Tropical Freeze were pivotal for King K. Rool. A lot of fans felt like Nintendo was abandoning the Kremlings, and honestly, we still kind of feel that way. But the fans banded together and made their voices heard when the Super Smash Bros. Ballot went up, and we managed to get King K. Rool put into Smash. We brought him back. And one of the coolest things about this whole entire time and situation was that the Kremling campaign on Twitter was actually being followed by Michael Kelbaum, the president of Retro Studios. This showed loud and clear that Retro was listening to fans, and I can honestly see them using K. Rool in the third and final game. And what a way to close out their trilogy, them bringing back Donkey Kong's arch nemesis, finally, and giving us that grand finale. Allegedly, according to insider information that was given to DK Vine, a very popular Donkey Kong forum site, apparently Retro wanted to put King K. Rool into the Tropical Freeze port on the Switch as a secret boss, but was denied this. Nintendo apparently nixed the idea because they wanted to bring him back in Smash, and wanted to give Sakurai the credit for reviving the character. And while personally, I actually do prefer how they did it, it still would have been really cool if Retro got the chance to actually do something with King K. Rool. But K. Rool aside, we probably would have had David Weiss on another Donkey Kong game, and we could have gotten another incredible soundtrack. I'm sure we probably would have seen more Kongs come back to the series. Maybe someday my boy Swanky Kong will return. Or who knows, perhaps we would have actually seen some of the elusive Kongs from Donkey Kong 64 make a return. No matter what, I'm sure it would have been great, but unfortunately, that timeline does not exist. And now, all we can do is wait for an alleged Nintendo in-house made Donkey Kong game. I'm not going to go into detail about that, that might be for another video. But either way, what did you guys think of Donkey Kong Country Returns and Tropical Freeze? Did you like them? Do you think Retro Studios should have got a third game? Why don't you let me know down in the comments below. If this is your first time checking out my channel, thanks for watching, especially if you made it this far. And also, feel free to subscribe. I put out videos whenever I put out videos. The one thing I can always guarantee is that I'm always going to make videos. If you hit the little bell icon, obviously that'll help you know when I actually do upload something. And if you want to talk to me in between putting out videos, feel free to join my Discord chat. I'll put a link down in the description below. It's the largest Discord chat on Earth where no one talks. It's wonderful. So feel free to join if you want to liven the place up. For all my longtime subscribers and watchers, thank you again from the bottom of my heart. I really do appreciate you, honestly. It warms my heart to know that people are still watching and subscribing despite the fact that I go through pretty decent long periods of not uploading, just again because of my schedule and everything. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So long as you guys keep watching, I'll keep making content. Slowly but surely. Anyway, I've gone on long enough. Have a great day, you guys. Be safe out there, and bye-bye.